So there I was, standing in the weirdest place to meet someone who would totally flip my world upside down, a public bathroom. Yeah, I know, it doesn't exactly scream romantic rendezvous, but bear with me. This wasn't some sketchy dive bar restroom or a grimy gas station stop either. It was the bathroom of this quirky little indie bookstore cafe downtown. The kind of place where you expect to run into someone interesting, but not necessarily while washing your hands or awkwardly glancing at the tile floor. I had ducked in after grabbing a coffee, mostly because my hands were shaking from a mix of caffeine jitters and a little social anxiety. For whatever reason, I always get weirdly anxious about ordering at that place. The baristas are super chill, but I swear I overthink every drink option like it's a life or death decision. Anyway, I was just finishing up when I heard someone come in behind me. That's when I noticed him, a guy in his late 20s, maybe early 30s. He had this casual vibe, like someone who didn't care about making a scene or fitting in, dressed in a simple gray hoodie and jeans, with messy dark hair that looked like he'd just rolled out of bed but somehow pulled it off. He glanced at me, then at the sink, then back at me with this half smile that made me feel like I was caught, but also invited to be part of something I didn't quite understand yet. And then, out of nowhere, he asked me this absolutely bizarre question. Do you think soap smells like childhood? I swear I blinked like 3 times, because who even asks that? Not in a public bathroom, not to a total stranger. But he looked genuinely curious, like he was waiting for my answer, like it mattered. I didn't know what to say at first. Part of me wanted to laugh, part wanted to run out of there, and another part was just intrigued. I remember looking down at the soap dispenser, then back up at him, and something about the way he asked made me want to say something real, not just a shrug or a huh. That moment felt oddly significant, like the start of something I'd never expected to happen in a place nobody really pays attention to. And honestly, I had no clue that a few minutes later, I'd be sharing stories, laughing, and realizing that sometimes the weirdest questions are the ones that open the door to something pretty amazing. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, I had to answer that question. And believe me, that was only the beginning. I cleared my throat, trying to sound more confident than I felt. Soap smells like childhood, huh? I guess I never thought about it that way. But yeah, maybe it does. Like those hospital soaps or the ones at my grandma's house. The ones that always smelled kind of floral but also weirdly sterile. They bring back memories of being little and visiting her. He nodded, the same half smile still playing on his lips, like he was happy to find someone who didn't just brush off the question as me being weird. Exactly. It's funny how certain scents can take you back, even when you don't want them to sometimes. I looked at him, suddenly aware that this was not going to be just a quick, awkward bathroom encounter. So what made you think of that? Soap and childhood? He shrugged, glancing at the mirror like he was trying to figure out how much of himself to reveal. I was in a weird mood today. Nostalgic, I guess. I'm Liam, by the way. Oh hey, I'm Ben. I stuck out my hand, and he shook it firmly, the kind of handshake that felt like a promise that the conversation wasn't over. Liam glanced around the bathroom, then leaned a little closer, lowering his voice just enough so it felt like a secret. You know, this place, the bookstore cafe, it's like a time capsule, the smell of old books, the creak of wooden floors. It all mixes with the smell of the coffee and the soap, and suddenly you're tangled in this weird kind of comfort. I laughed softly. Yeah, I get that. I spend way too much time here, probably to the point where the baristas know my order better than I do. Me too, he said, eyes lighting up. Though I'm more of a window seat guy. Nothing beats watching the rain while reading a good book and sipping on something warm. We both laughed, the awkwardness easing off like the tension just melted away. It felt strange how quickly I was drawn into this conversation, especially with a stranger in a public bathroom. But maybe that was the point. Sometimes the best moments happen when you least expect them. So, what kind of books do you like? I asked, trying to keep the conversation flowing. He thought for a second, leaning back against the sink. Mostly fiction. I love stories that let me escape, but also ones that make me think. Like a good character who's flawed but real. You? Same here, I said. Though I'm a please-meer for anything with a bit of mystery or history. I guess I like stories that surprise me. Good answer. Liam said with a grin. Maybe you're the kind of person who'd enjoy that new mystery novel that's been sitting on the shelf for months. I've been meaning to read it, but you know how it is. Too many books, not enough time. Tell me about it, I said, feeling a little thrill at the coincidence. Maybe we could check it out together sometime. He looked at me then, this flicker of something. Curiosity? Interest? In his eyes. I'd like that. At that moment, the automatic hand dryer kicked on, blowing a loud whoosh of air that made us both jump. We laughed, a little embarrassed by the sudden noise breaking the bubble we'd created. I glanced at my watch and realized I'd already been in the bathroom far longer than I intended. I should probably get back before my coffee gets cold. Yeah, Liam said, running a hand through his hair like he wasn't quite ready to end the conversation. Maybe I'll see you around here again. Definitely, I said, already picturing the next time I'd come here, hoping he'd be there too. We both turned toward the door, but before I stepped out, he called after me. By the way, if you ever want to debate whether soap smells like childhood or just plain old soap, I'm game. I laughed, shaking my head. Deal. Walking back to the cafe, I couldn't stop smiling. Who knew a public bathroom could be the start of something so unexpected? I felt like I'd just stumbled into a story of my own, and somehow, it felt like the best one yet. I grabbed my coffee from the counter, feeling a little lighter than I had when I walked in. There was something about Liam's presence. It wasn't just the weird soap question. It was the way he made me feel like I wasn't just a background character in my own life. Like I actually mattered, even if it was just for a few minutes in a bathroom. As I settled into my usual spot by the window, I found my mind drifting back to him. Was it crazy to feel that kind of connection so fast? Maybe. But I wasn't about to question it. I pulled up my phone and typed a quick message to myself. Soap smells like childhood. It felt like a good reminder that sometimes the smallest things can lead to something bigger. The next few days were a blur of work and routine, but every time I thought about the bookstore cafe, I found myself hoping Liam would be there again. I started making excuses to stop by more often, sometimes just for a quick coffee, other times to browse the shelves longer than I usually would, and then one rainy Thursday afternoon, there he was, sitting at the table near the window, exactly where he said he liked to be, with that same casual messy hair and the gray hoodie. My heart did this weird little flip, like it always seemed to when you're about to do something that feels both terrifying and exciting. I took a deep breath, walked over and slid into the seat across from him without saying anything at first. He looked up, surprised but smiling, and that was all the invitation I needed. Hey, he said, voice warm, like we'd been friends for years instead of strangers from a bathroom. Hey, I replied, suddenly feeling a bit self-conscious. I thought maybe we could finally talk about that soap question. He laughed, the sound easy and genuine. Finally. I was starting to think you'd forgotten. Not a chance, I said, smiling. So what made you bring it up in the first place? You seemed pretty serious about it. Liam leaned back, folding his arms. Honestly? I don't know. I guess sometimes I get nostalgic, like I mentioned before. But more than that, I think I was testing the water, seeing if you were someone who could dive into weird conversations with me. If that makes sense. I nodded, feeling a warmth spreading through my chest. It does. I like that. I'm tired of small talk anyway. Same here. He looked at me, eyes searching, and then said, Do you want to get out of here? Maybe go for a walk? I hesitated for a split second, then nodded. Yeah, I'd like that. Outside, the rain had mostly stopped, leaving the streets slick and shiny under the city lights. We walked side by side, neither of us rushing to fill the silence. It was comfortable, like we were both figuring out how to be around someone new, but not at all awkward. So I said after a while, what do you do when you're not coming up with deep questions in bathrooms or hanging out in bookstores? Liam grinned. I'm a graphic designer, mostly freelance stuff, which means I work from home too much and have terrible posture. I laughed. I can relate. I'm a software developer. Pretty much the same story. Look at us, the perfect match for bad backs and endless coffee, he joked. We talked about work, favorite movies, music, everything and nothing all at once. It felt like peeling back layers without any pressure or pretenses. At one point, he stopped and pointed to a small park bench under a street lamp. Let's sit for a minute. We settled there, the city humming softly around us. I noticed the way the light caught his eyes, making them look even more intense. For a moment, I forgot where I was, caught up in the way he smiled when he looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time, but also like he'd been waiting a long time. Then he said, quietly, "I'm glad I asked that weird question." "Me too," I said, surprised by how true it felt. We sat in silence again, and I realized that sometimes the strangest beginnings turn into the most meaningful stories. And I couldn't wait to see where this one was headed. We stayed on that bench longer than either of us probably intended, but time felt like it stretched in this quiet little bubble away from the usual noise. The street lamp's glow softened everything, including the edges of my nervousness. I was still trying to figure out what this was between us. Was it just two people who happened to connect, or was there something more sneaking up on me? Liam broke the silence first. "So Ben, what's your story? Like, the real stuff you don't usually tell people at coffee shops or on the first meeting in a bathroom," I chuckled, grateful for his straightforwardness. "Honestly, I'm a bit of a mess. I moved here a few years ago, trying to start fresh. Work stable, but my love life? Not so much. I'm the guy who ends up ghosted more times than I care to admit." He gave me a sympathetic look, but didn't laugh or judge, which surprised me. "Yeah, I guess I'm not exactly the easiest person to date," I admitted. "I tend to overthink everything, and sometimes it's easier to just stay single." Liam nodded slowly, like he understood all too well. "I get that. I've been in some relationships where I felt like I was performing, not really being myself. Eventually, it just gets exhausting." There was a raw honesty in his voice that caught me off guard. For a moment, I forgot where I was supposed to be cautious. "Do you think—" I started, hesitating. "That's why you asked me about the soap? Like, looking for something real in a place where nobody expects it?" He smiled, a little wistful. "Maybe. I guess I wanted to see if beneath the surface, there was someone willing to be a little vulnerable. Even if it starts with a weird question." I felt my chest tighten. "I think I'm willing." He reached out, brushing a stray hair behind my ear. The touch was gentle, and it sent a jolt through me that I wasn't expecting. His eyes searched mine, asking a silent question. "I'm glad you did," I whispered. We sat there, comfortable and close, until the cold finally nudged us to move again. "Do you want to get some food?" "I know a good late-night taco place nearby," Liam suggested. Tacos sounded perfect. "Lead the way." As we walked through the damp streets, the city seemed quieter, like it was giving us space to figure things out. We talked about everything and nothing. Kids, cartoons we secretly loved, embarrassing moments that still made us cringe, fears about the future. It was like peeling back the layers without any judgment. At the taco place, we squeezed into a corner booth, the smell of grilled meat and spices filling the air. Liam ordered 2 tacos and a shared plate of chips and salsa. We ate slowly, stealing glances at each other, the kind of looks that said, "I'm interested," without any pressure, so soap and tacos. "Not your average meet cute," I joked. He smiled, eyes twinkling. "No, but definitely memorable." After dinner, we wandered back toward the bookstore café, now closed and dark, but somehow it felt like the place where something had really started. When we reached the door, Liam stopped and turned to me. "I don't want this to be a one-time thing, Ben." "Me neither," I said honestly. He hesitated, then leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to my cheek. It was quick, but it lingered in my mind long after. "See you tomorrow?" he asked. I nodded. "Definitely." Walking home, I felt like I was floating. Who knew a weird question in a bathroom could lead to a night like this? Maybe life's little surprises were worth embracing, even if they came in the most unexpected packages. And honestly, I couldn't wait to see what came next. The next day, I showed up at the bookstore cafe earlier than usual, heart pounding with a mix of excitement and nerves. I wasn't exactly sure what I expected, maybe just a friendly hello or a quick chat. But when I spotted Liam already there, curled up in his usual window seat with a book in hand, I felt like the luckiest guy alive. He looked up, caught my eye, and his smile was the kind that could melt glaciers. I made my way over, and without thinking, slipped into the seat across from him. "Morning," I said, trying to sound casual but probably failing spectacularly. "Morning, Ben," he replied, closing his book and giving me his full attention. "You're early. What's the occasion?" "Can't wait to see you again," I admitted, which earned me a playful raise of his eyebrows. We ordered coffee, and for a while, just talked like we'd known each other forever. His voice had this easy rhythm that made me forget all the usual worries I carried around, like whether I was being too awkward or too much. "So," Liam said, leaning forward, "what do you want to do today? Besides debating the meaning of soap, of course." I laughed. "Honestly, I don't care, as long as it involves you." His eyes softened. That's probably the smoothest thing anyone said to me in a bathroom before. We both laughed, and just like that, the conversation shifted from casual to something more personal. We started sharing stories about our families, the messy stuff we didn't usually talk about, the fights, the regrets, the ways we'd learned to protect ourselves from getting hurt. At one point, Liam looked thoughtful. "I've always been afraid to really open up, but with you, it feels different. Safe." I reached across the table and took his hand. "I feel the same. Like maybe this time, we don't have to be afraid." He squeezed my hand gently, and I could tell he meant it. Later that afternoon, we wandered through the city, stumbling upon a little vinyl shop that neither of us had noticed before. Liam was in his element, flipping through records and sharing stories about the bands he used to follow in college. I found myself opening up too, telling him about my own music guilty pleasures and the concerts I'd always wanted to go to but never did. We ended up buying a couple of records, our first little collection, and I couldn't stop smiling at the idea of building something together, even if it was just a stack of old albums for now. As the sun started to dip, we found a quiet park bench, the same kind of spot where we'd shared that first meaningful silence the night before. Liam turned to me. "I don't want to rush anything, but I have to ask, what are you hoping for from this? From us?" I took a deep breath. "Honestly, I want to see where this goes without all the usual drama and fear. I want to be with someone who makes me feel like I can be myself. You do that for me." His smile was a little shy, but his eyes were full of warmth. "I think I want the same." We sat there for a long time, hands intertwined, watching the world around us slow down just enough for us to catch our breath. I realized then that sometimes the strangest beginnings, the bathrooms, the random questions, could lead to the most beautiful stories. And as awkward as it sounds, meeting Liam in that public bathroom was the best accidental thing that ever happened to me. After that afternoon in the park, things started to feel different. Not just because I was seeing Liam every day, but because I was starting to see myself differently too. I didn't realize how much I'd been holding back until he came along and made me want to drop the walls, even if just a little. One evening, about a week after we started hanging out regularly, Liam invited me over to his apartment. It was the kind of place that felt like him, cozy, a little cluttered with art supplies and sketchbooks scattered around, and walls lined with framed prints. The smell of incense mixed with the faint scent of coffee lingered in the air. It wasn't the typical date setting, but it felt genuine, like stepping into his world. He greeted me with that same easy smile, but I could tell he was a little nervous. Maybe because this was new territory for both of us. "Make yourself at home," he said, motioning toward the couch. I settled in, looking around and feeling a little overwhelmed by how personal everything was. Then Liam disappeared into the kitchen and came back with 2 mugs of tea. He handed me one and sat down close enough that our arms brushed. So he started, kicking off the conversation. "What's something you've never told anyone?" He gave me this mischievous look like he was daring me to be vulnerable. I hesitated, thinking about all the things I usually kept to myself. But with him, I felt like maybe I could share something real. "Okay," I said finally. "When I was a kid, I was afraid of being different. Not in a dramatic way, just I wanted to fit in so badly that I'd pretend to like things I didn't. Even now, I catch myself people-pleasing because it feels safer than being rejected." Liam nodded slowly, as if he understood more than I said. Then, softly, "I get that. I've spent so long hiding pieces of myself that I forgot who I really was." The room felt warmer, not just because of the tea. Without thinking, I reached over and took his hand. It was a simple touch, but it said more than any words could. We stayed like that for a while, talking about fears and dreams, the kind of conversation that creeps up on you and changes everything. Later, Liam pulled out that record we bought together and put it on the turntable. The music filled the room, mellow and perfect. He looked at me, eyes shining in the dim light. "Dance with me?" he asked. I laughed, the nervousness bubbling up again. "In your living room?" "Anywhere," he said, standing and holding out his hand. I took it, feeling like I was stepping into a scene I never imagined for myself. We swayed slowly, awkward at first, then more confident as the song went on. There was no pressure, just two guys caught in a moment that felt incredibly intimate. When the song ended, Liam tucked a stray hair behind my ear and whispered, "I'm glad I asked you that weird question in the bathroom." "Me too," I said, leaning into him. Days turned into weeks, and what started as a chance run-in became something solid, something I didn't want to let go. We fell into a rhythm. Lazy Sunday mornings with shared coffee and books, spontaneous trips to the record store, late-night talks that stretched until dawn. But it wasn't perfect. There were moments when my old fears crept back, doubts about whether I was good enough, whether Liam felt the same depth of connection. And there were times when Liam seemed guarded, like he was holding back parts of himself. One night, after a particularly quiet dinner, I finally asked, "Is there something you're not telling me?" He looked at me with tired eyes and sighed. "I'm scared, Ben. Scared of getting hurt, scared of losing what we have before it even really begins." I reached out, squeezing his hand. "I'm scared too, but I think it's worth the risk." He smiled, a little shaky but real. "Yeah, me too." That night we talked for hours, peeling back the layers of fear and hope. It wasn't easy, but it made us stronger. Looking back, I never would have guessed that a public bathroom and a weird question about soap could lead me here. But sometimes, life's oddest moments open the door to the most meaningful connections. And with Liam beside me, I finally felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. In the days that followed that late-night heart-to-heart, things started to shift between Liam and me, not in big, flashy ways, but in those subtle moments that matter more than anything. Like the time he showed up at my apartment with a ridiculous collection of instant ramen packets, insisting we have a ramen challenge because, as he put it, nothing says bonding like questionable noodles at midnight. We laughed until our sides hurt, and I realized how easy it was to be around him. No masks, no pretense. But it wasn't all easy. There were mornings when I woke up with that gnawing feeling of doubt, the old voice in my head whispering, "What if this doesn't last? What if you mess it up?" And I could see it in Liam too, the way he sometimes pulled back, a flicker of hesitation in his smile, or the silence that stretched a little too long. One evening, as we were walking back from a late showing of some indie film neither of us had heard of before, I decided to break the silence that had settled between us. "Hey," I said, nudging his arm gently. "You've been quiet. What's up?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know. I guess I'm just scared. This feels real, and for once, I don't want to screw it up." I stopped walking and turned to face him. "You won't screw it up. We're both figuring this out. I'm scared too, but I want to try with you." His eyes softened, and he reached out, pulling me into a hug. "I'm glad you say that, because I don't think I've ever wanted someone this much." That night, we talked until the street lamps flickered and went out, sharing fears and hopes like two kids whispering secrets under the covers. A few weeks later, Liam invited me to meet his friends. We headed to this cozy little bar, the kind that had that perfect mix of dim lighting and indie music humming in the background. I was nervous. Meeting new people always made me second-guess myself, but Liam's hand in mine was a steady anchor. His friends greeted me warmly, and I saw this softer side of Liam, the one that lit up when he was around people who knew and accepted him. It made me feel like I wasn't just dating Liam. I was becoming part of his world too. After a couple of drinks, Liam pulled me aside. "There's one more thing," he said, voice low. "I want to show you something." Curious, I followed him outside. We walked a few blocks until we reached a small, tucked-away mural on a brick wall, a vibrant splash of colors and shapes that caught the light just right. "I painted this," Liam said quietly. "It's part of a project I've been working on. It's about finding beauty in unexpected places, like how something as strange as a soap question can lead to something real." I stared at the mural, feeling a rush of pride and something deeper. "It's amazing. Just like you." He smiled, cheeks flushing a little. "Thanks, Ben. That means a lot." As we stood there, the city alive around us, I thought about how far we'd come, from a random bathroom encounter to this moment, standing side by side, ready to face whatever came next. But life, as it tends to do, had other plans. One morning, I woke up to a message from Liam. It was short and cryptic. "Need to talk. Meet me at the cafe in an hour?" My stomach dropped. What had changed overnight? I arrived at the cafe early, nerves jangling. When Liam walked in, his usual confident smile was gone, replaced by something heavier. He sat down across from me, hands trembling slightly. "Ben, I didn't want to spring this on you like this, but I found out some news yesterday. My visa's up in 2 months. I have to decide whether to leave the country or apply for an extension, and it's not guaranteed." My heart sank. I'd known Liam was here on a temporary visa, but we'd both been avoiding the topic, hoping it wouldn't come up so soon. "What does that mean for us?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. He looked down, swallowing hard. "I don't know. I want to stay, with you, but it's complicated. The process is stressful, and there's no certainty." We sat there in silence, the weight of the unknown pressing down on us. It felt like the world had tilted, and I wasn't sure how to steady it. But then Liam reached across the table, taking my hand with a shaky but determined grip. "Whatever happens, I want to fight for us." I squeezed his hand back, feeling the fierce determination in his touch. Me too. In that moment, it didn't matter how uncertain the future was. What mattered was that we were in this together, ready to face the messy, beautiful, complicated journey head-on. Because sometimes, love starts in the most unexpected places, and it's those weird, awkward beginnings that make the story worth telling. Those next 2 months were some of the most intense and uncertain I've ever experienced. Liam and I navigated paperwork, lawyer meetings, and a roller coaster of hope and disappointment. But through all the stress, what never wavered was us. Our late-night talks, our quiet mornings with coffee, the way his hand fit perfectly in mine, grounding me when everything else felt shaky. One evening, as we sat on that same park bench where we'd opened up to each other for the first time, Liam pulled out an envelope. His fingers trembled slightly as he handed it to me. "It's the approval letter," he said softly. I tore it open, heart pounding, and read the words that finally settled the knot in my chest. His visa was extended for another 2 years. We just sat there, letting the news sink in, the city lights twinkling around us like a quiet celebration. Liam turned to me, eyes shining with relief and something deeper. Love, hope, maybe even a little pride. "I'm not going anywhere," he said quietly. "Good," I smiled, squeezing his hand. "Because I'm not going anywhere either." In that moment, all the weird questions, the awkward bathroom encounters, and the uncertain nights felt like pieces of a puzzle finally falling into place. We had something real, a connection built not just on attraction, but on trust, honesty, and the courage to face the unknown together. Looking back, it's strange to think how it all began. A random question about soap in a public bathroom, of all places. But maybe that's the thing about life. It doesn't always make sense, and sometimes the most unexpected moments lead to the most beautiful stories. As Liam leaned in and kissed me softly under the glow of the street lamp, I realized this was just the beginning. No matter what came next, we had found something worth holding on to. And honestly, I wouldn't trade it for anything.